Hey everyone, this is Tony with Rich and Brody. We're your hosts for this weekend's Hobby Hotline. How's everyone doing today? Rich and Brody, how are you?
Well, I am playing a little bit hurt. I decided yesterday would be a brilliant day to get both my COVID-19 and my flu shot. As I said, everybody has different opinions about vaccines. I believe in getting them, but if you don't, I'm certainly not going to argue with you. And I had a sore shoulder when I was trying to sleep. Plus, I had chills for a few hours, so I'm playing a little bit hurt this morning. And one thing we were asked to do before we begin the fun part of the show, which is actually talking about news, is to show a card. Well, I found this morning, and he's one of the two people from my high school who has played in the major leagues, and his name is Harrison Bader. And I think if somebody's really inventive, they should come up with a card of him on a scooter, because that's certainly one of the most innovative injuries we've had in baseball in recent years.
Pretty cool. How about you, Brody? Do you have something you would like to share?
Okay, so my favorite player in the league, Brenton Doyle, he went on my show a long time ago, was traded to the White Sox. So I've got his jersey on today. I got a custom jersey made a couple weeks ago. And I finally got his 2025 Topps Goldin mirror. I think these are pretty cool. Obviously, got the gold on the back, but it's a pretty dope photo after he hit a walk-off. So that was a pretty nice card to add to the Brenton Doyle PC.
Nice. So we'll show mine real fast. So with the All-Star game just having finished in Philadelphia, 76, 96, and 26, I went to the card show we had, I think it was called the Major League Baseball Fan Fest in 96. And I pulled out from a free pack a 1996 Upper Deck. It's called You Crashed the Game. I don't know if folks remember those in the chat. But essentially, each of these players, they had a date on the card. This is July 4th through the 7th. And if your player hit a home run, then you mailed it in and you got a special card. And if you see here, it's Palmeiro, not one of my favorites for multiple reasons, but he was a heck of a player. And that's the card I want to show today.
Pretty cool card.
Thank you. And it was a redemption, and it's pretty blingy.
I just want to say one thing. This is Tony's first time hosting the show. So if something happens, please show him grace and courtesy in case something goes a little bit off.
Thank you for that, Rich. So the topics we have on today, there's four of them, usually three. I think we could fit four in. We have two Honus Wagner cards to talk about. One ended this past week at Love of the Game. And we talked about that in the past. We'll skim through that. We also have the Heritage Honus Wagner card too. And we'll talk about that. Second topic, the signed 1952 Bowman Mickey Mantle card, recently consigned to Goldin. Third, we have the 101 1Flagg redemption that was pulled. And finally, we'll wrap the show up with the National Theft Update. So let's get into the Honus Wagner card, which doesn't rhyme with bonus. So some folks think that the 1.33 million sale was not a lot of money. I actually think it was, and we have some comps to compare it against. I don't know if Rich and Brody, if you have any thoughts on this sale.
Well, considering Mr. Oberman said he paid $75,000 for that card like 20 years ago, I think he did just fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I think for an authentic one, that's not bad at all. I mean, I agree with Rich's point too. I mean, yeah, it's a nice return on investment right there.
Yeah, not bad. Then we had a comment, which a few folks pointed out this past week, was that the Wagner cut alone, which is this card before it was restored, and combined with the Tommy Leach card, Ravel thought it might sell for $100,000. He just wasn't sure. Then I pulled up some values of card ladder, and I think the best comp for that might be the card that's cut in half. And in 2022, this Wagner sold for $475,000, 476 if we round it up. So if this went for $500,000, pretty sure this copy here, even when before it was cut up, would have went for more than that. Any comments on this?
I think, yeah. I mean, if the one that was cut up went for 476, I'd say it's a pretty good sale. I mean, I'm not the hugest vintage guy, but seems like pretty solid for me.
Yeah. Then we have this one ending at auction next weekend, and this is part of the Heritage lot. This card has a little bit of history to it, just a little bit provenance. It's from the Charles Bray, talked about it. And here we have the Piedmont cigarettes back. These are pretty rare. Folks may know that the PSA 8 card, which used to be owned by Gretzky and McNeil, is also a Piedmont back. And so here's the note that Heritage included within the description for it. And at last check, this card was already up to $3.6 million with the buyer's premium.
Well, one thing to note is this card has provenance. And I've always said in this hobby, we will really become even more than we are when people start appreciating provenance. There's a lot of times in the coin and the stamp world, there's provenance, and it really helps with those collectibles. The cards need the same type of provenance. When basically the founder of Through the Mail Autographs, and I know there were other people before him, but he became best known for doing things, was Jack Smalling. And one of my friends called me because he was reached out to by the family as one of the people they wanted him to look at what they had. And I said, I think if you can get the collection at a reasonable price, it's really a no-brainer, because everything you send out a letter or you do something with a provenance, that it's from the Jack Smalling collection. And the people who know about the Smalling list know about it. And I think it's the same thing. I think the more we get provenance into the hobby, the better it is. It's also better for the chain of how the cards travel along the years. And, that's just, and I know it's hard for some people to understand, but this is still a business for a lot of people. And as a business, it's a really good thing to have.
I think the letter, I think that really shows just how much the hobby's evolved in terms of how much more money is in it between when that letter was written and now. I think that's a pretty nice add to it.
Just looking at some comments here. Provenance.
And John Keating's on a roll this morning. We love John Keating.
Yes, we do.
How often do you see him at local shows, Tony?
John, we see each other, what, about every other Philly show? He sees me, he tries to run away, but then I find him. It's like playing a game of tag. John said, I'm sorting OPG hockey, so he's in a fighting mood. Good for John. Next topic, we have the 1952 Bowman Mickey Mantle. Folks learned about this card earlier this year. This is the 52 Mantle that was pack pulled in March or October 1952, most likely in April 1952. And it was mailed away TTM to the Yankees organization, and it was signed by Mickey Mantle. So this is pictures of Barry and Justin from Rabbit Hole. And there's a few articles in Sports Collectors Digest. We won't get too much into that. It's already been reported on. But here's a nice close-up of the Mickey Mantle. So PSA did encapsulate it. And it got graded at PSA 1 with an 8 auto. Q videos online have been made about the card, most likely from Steve Grad and others, just talking about the signature itself. Then PSA did the right thing, and they backed up how they authenticated the signature, and they're standing behind it. And at the tail end of the National, I found out, much did everyone else at the same time, was that the card has been consigned to Goldin and will not be featured in Rabbit Hole second auction. How do folks feel about this card and this whole story?
Well, once that card has the authentication, it's really hard to take it away. And, and as you said, PSA has stood behind that card and the autograph. And as such, I'm pretty sure it's going to get really good money. I am not, Steve Grad is obviously a very respected figure in the autograph world. So, there is that too, but the card's in the holder. It's authenticated. It's going to do just fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it's somebody authenticated it, so and PSA is one of the biggest in the world to do that. So, I mean, it's a great autograph. It looks really nice, in my opinion. Especially, I mean, it's an 8, but it looks really nice. He's going to gold, and he's going to get a lot of money for it.
Ray from Philly says he still gets the
swimsuit. You change auction houses. You change auction houses because you're going to get more money. Let's be honest. You're going to get more money out of Goldin than you out of Rabbit Hole.
Yeah.
So this would be Justin's second auction, I believe, with his Rabbit Hole company, and I think with a card with the background and the history of this card, definitely makes sense to go with an auction house like Goldin. With this particular card, if it's included within the vintage auction, you'll have Joe T talking about the card, in addition to Ken Goldin, if it was in any other typical like Goldin 100 type of an auction or one of their catalog auctions. So I think for Barry, I think he and Justin made the correct choice by switching auction houses. They did what's best for Barry, in my opinion. Exactly. Goldin made an offer that Barry could not refuse. The Hobby Mafia is no joke.
I mean, Ken Goldin gets a lot of money. He promotes the heck out of things. He's going to get a ton.
Assigned business. Bob Boozle with the quote we all were probably thinking about. Who can refuse Ken Goldin? A sweet, sweet man.
Well, I want to defend Ken Goldin on something here. Back in the day, pre-COVID, at the show I still run it for my synagogue, but it's now a very slimmed down version of what it was previously. And we used to do bags of cards with prize slips inside. And when the tax laws changed about 2018, Ken Goldin posted on Facebook that he was looking, to help people who had legitimate charities with various items. And I explained to him what I was doing. And I will tell you, I got 2 huge boxes of things and they were all in the price range that was perfect for the prizes for my show, $5, $10, $15, a couple better items. And I will tell you that people loved what he sent. And I was very appreciative. It was well communicated and well sent. And anytime anybody wants to get on Ken Goldin, I always tell them that, even though there was a financial reason because of new tax laws, he sent us some wonderful stuff. And I've always been very appreciative of what he did. So, I always defend Ken, at least on that part of it, that he has done a lot of good for people.
Did you get a chance to watch the Thursday night Field of Dreams game between the Twins and Phillies?
I don't have Netflix, so I can't
Okay.
watch. So,
Brody, you?
It's fun. Schwarber hitting 2 home runs is pretty interesting, especially to start the game. I mean, that's what Schwarber does, though. It's a fun game. I would definitely want to get down there sometime.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is because Ray from Philly talked about it here. Ken was front and center right behind home plate. So you saw a lot of Ken during the game. So he's really getting himself out there.
I believe Ken Goldin is also on the background of some basketball cards, if I remember correctly, because we noted it in the ComC database that he's in the background of some cards. And it actually juiced up interest in that card.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly which one, but he's definitely in the background of a few.
Comment here from Eric. There we go. Once they allegedly refused JSA, that was because, in hindsight, now we know, is because Barry was consigning the card to Golden Auctions, and it's already PSA certified, so it didn't make too much sense for them to go back to JSA.
I mean, it's slab. You don't need a second person to authenticate it.
Yeah, in this case, I didn't see the benefit. All right. Any questions or more topics regarding the 52 Bowman Mickey Mantle, which this is a pretty low pop card. I didn't get a chance to look into any estimates of how much it would sell for.
It's going to go for good money.
we could take a quick look.
Ken runs his business very well. He is going to make sure everybody on the planet knows that that's being run through his auction house.
Here we're doing a little bit of, you see me typing.
Ken, what does Crystal have to say about possibly moving out of Texas?
January 31st, we had one sell for $91,500. That was a PSA 1 with a 9 auto. And then we could sort by price. In 2023, this one sold for $99,000. And that's a 5 with a 9 auto. It's a pretty nice card. We talked about this one. Wouldn't it be nice to own one of these? Sharpie or even a ballpoint pen. It's pretty cool. So let's move on to the 101 Cooper Flagg that's part of Topps Chrome. Andrew had a little bit of video about it. Here we see the card being pulled. Now, I believe, Brody, this is a redemption, or is this the actual card?
Yeah, it's the redemption that they can send to Topps to get the card. I mean, this is the biggest card of the year, pretty much. They estimate 3 million. There's been people offering $3 million. I think if you set it to a Ken Goldin or Heritage, it's going to go for more than that. I mean, it's 1Flagg. He's the biggest deal in basketball. It's going to go for a lot of money.
And then this came out of the 2025 to 26 Topps Chrome update basketball. Did you buy any packs of this product?
I have personally not. That was the thing with this hype for these debut patches. It's very expensive. I mean, we're in a day and age now where blasters are 40, 45 bucks anyways. But I mean, hobby boxes were pre-selling for like $540 and now they're like $1,000. They might start to dip in price a little bit now that that flag debut patch has been pulled, but there's still a lot of other big names that haven't surfaced yet.
I just want to point out, with all the people that love conspiracy theories, to me, where that card was pulled proves that Fanatics doesn't do certain things that some people think they do. Because if they really wanted to get maximum publicity for that card, it would have been pulled somewhere at the national convention.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Could you imagine if that card had been pulled at the national? I mean, my lord. Of course, then you'd hear all the conspiracy theories. So I'm actually glad it got pulled where it got pulled. Because to me, that shows that the conspiracy theorists are not always correct. In addition, there was some really cool stuff. The Mavericks offered 32 years of season tickets and some other prizes if you pulled that card. Now, as for me, I'm 66 years old. 32 years of Mavericks season tickets would put me at age 98. I don't think I'm going to be around that long, so I'd probably figure out some way to take the money instead. But, you know, if you're of a certain age and you lived in the Dallas area and you pulled that card, you might just say, I'll take that 32-year offer of season tickets and hope that the Mavericks stay good for at least some, if not all, of that time. Plus, they're moving to a new arena, or they want to move to a new arena. This hasn't yet been built at the old Valley View Mall still in Dallas. And it's basically a wide open space where they're moving to. It's a mall that's basically died. And the Dallas Stars are moving also to a mall that's basically dying as we speak. It's also been my walking place. So as a senior walker, I'm a little disappointed I'm losing my climate-controlled walking place. On a business level. For both of them, it's a good idea. And I think it'd been kind of cool to get season tickets for when the Mavs move to the new home in that new location. But that's a different subject for a different day.
I mean, they were nice tickets, though, too. If you weren't even there and you wanted to sell them every game, I don't know if you'd make $3 million back, but you'd make a good amount.
You would obviously depends on the team, and it also depends on how good the Mavs are. Depends where your tickets are. And, you know, like, for example, if the Mavs are playing a team in the doldrums of the NBA and they're also in the doldrums, I remember in the early 90s when the Mavericks pulled up back-to-back seasons of 11 and 13 wins. And so you can imagine about 1993, the Mavericks playing the Sacramento Kings. You're basically playing that game for friends and family. So you're not guaranteed of having great tickets, great sales out of every game you have. Now, you had gotten really good money for the game Michael Jordan shows up for, but you're not going to get good money for the Sacramento. At the time, I don't know, like even the Charlotte Hornets, you know, teams like that, you weren't really going to get good money.
Take the money. Because with that money, you can always get some pretty nice Dallas Mavericks season tickets.
Yeah, that's true. You can take it, and then You can buy 10 games front row.
Let's go on to our next topic.
And by the way, if the chat wants us a different topic the chat wants to talk about, we're always happy to hear from the chat.
Yeah, or call in.
A little bit more 1Flagg items. So we have the national theft update. I know this is near and dear to some of us. We don't like to see items get stolen. Here's the card in question. So I believe this was valued at between $12,000 and $15,000 at 2025 Topps Chrome Mahomes variation with the gold refractor. And there was some pictures enhanced of the fella who supposedly was with a child, and it turns out he was the grandfather and his grandson. We blocked out the child's face, obviously, and then AI was used to enhance the picture. And the Rosemont police worked together with the national officials, and the person was apprehended. 61-year-old Michael Moretti. A lot of comments about this one here. The national theft update is that my card budget was stolen by Steel City DW. Bob Boozle said, "Oh, please let me punch Michael."
Well, the problem with this is there's a lot of nuance, which is kind of sad because, as pointed out in our chat, in our hobby hotline chat, the theft charge is not going to exist. The only charge that's going to be made is the child endangerment charge. And there's been a lot of comments about why would you not want the theft to be, theft charge to stick? Well, one of the problems is that I don't know where the dealer's from, and I don't know his financial situation. But I know if I had a $12,000 card that ended up being in police custody, and I don't have a lot of money, I have a better shot of making money selling that card than I do of having it sit as an item in evidence, for who knows how long. And so that's one of the biggest issues with something like this is you may it sounds great to have, but a lot of vendors don't have a lot of maybe a little bit cash poor and inventory rich. And if that's the case, you can't really afford to be missing your $12,000 card. Now, looking at all that, and TJ and Tony, you and I, we had discussions in our chat before this all happened. And you know how I tend to go off on how the National should have more badges per booth, etc. That's a perfect example of why you need more people. Because your back is turned and the guy just absconds with that card. Thankfully, it's going to come back and, it was well videoed. But you have, no matter how careful you are, the more eyes you have on things, the better off you are. And that's why I'm always on the side of let's have more badges for the National, for vendors for the National. And as I said, it's not for the reason, if a few of them buy cards early on Tuesday, it's not as big of a deal as protecting the people. We know that people are getting followed on the way home from shows, and there have been various thefts in various hobbies over the years. Anything that protects the people is worth doing. And that's why I'm always on the side of more badges for booths.
Oh yeah,
Agreed.
I agree for sure. I mean, I think it's good that they caught them though. I mean, a lot of these times these big thefts come up and nothing seems to happen from the national. It's good to see. But I also think in the future too. Another thing I noticed is as dealers, especially with cards like this, you gotta latch your cases. A lot of people that I buy from, they always got them locked. You gotta latch them. I mean, if there's a story, there's multiple stories every year. Latch your cases, play it safe. It takes 10 extra seconds.
Lauren, who has some experience with dealer badges setting up at the National, says disagree. 3 per booth. That limits the amount of dealer badges floating around at setup from non-dealers. Cases locked. 3 people is quite a few for the space allotted. Yeah, I see that point. Um,
And I
But-
also see, and there are also people who agree with my point. And I
Yeah.
agree with Lauren to some extent. I'm a big fan of 3 badges per booth because that's 1 per table, and that's really where I'm coming from. As long as it's 3 badges, and if you have 2 booths, you get 6 badges.
so
And as I
3
said,
max
looking at
per
how that
booth.
was done, there looked to be only 1 person, and it wasn't a great setup for protection from what that vendor did either. I don't know if he had an option of doing a better way of protecting his merchandise, but it was certainly, looking at how he set up the table, it was not a great way of doing protection. And
Rich,
I've
oh,
told
I
the
was,
store.
mhm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, going back to the story, you mentioned in our Instagram chat that the National used to tell people that they had undercover police walking around.
Yes, 1984 National. There was a gentleman. Remember, it was a smaller show in those days. It was all just in one big hotel ballroom. There was a police officer sitting at the front table at all times. And every hour and a half, they'd make an announcement. We have undercover cops walking around the show to prevent thefts. Nobody ever recorded a theft. Nobody ever reported anything being stolen at the 84 National. And do you know how many cops were really walking around that show? 0. But the deterrence was sufficient. Just could you imagine if you make an announcement every once in a while that, hey, we have undercover cops walking around, and if we catch you, you're going to be arrested. And I mean, at the Dallas Card Show, there were so many police officers walking around. It's very obvious. But you can do it that way too. Deterrence is sometimes half the battle.
Mm-hmm. Was there a second card stolen at the National?
I saw a
I
note
didn't-
in the chat about a PSA 7 maze. I had not heard about that.
I had an Eiler.
I read about
I
2
know
cards,
last
but
year,
I
one
wasn't
of my
sure. It was
friends
amazing.
had a Bowman Mickey Mantle rookie stolen from their table. Basically, they did great at the show other than that, and paying the guy for the car that got stolen was basically, they ended up breaking even at the National. But I looked later as where the card was, and since then they've also changed their security at their table. Now they have cameras. They do the Dallas Card Show. They have cameras at every time they do a show now, just to make sure there are things being monitored. And a lot of booths are getting cheaper cameras, and they're doing that to, as a deterrence as well.
Pastor Greg brings up a nice comment here. A big multi-table booth needs a dedicated watcher, such as security only. Think of like a bouncer. But the difference is that the person wouldn't deal with any customers on like a bouncer, but it would just be a watcher. I think that's what cameras, which Rich, you spoke about, as did Brody and others. Cameras kind of serve as that, but they're not real time. But folks should know thieves should know in this day and age. I know they don't care, but they should know that everyone has a cell phone. Everyone with a built-in camera, pretty good camera now, obviously. Then booths have their own cameras set up, higher up to capture everything like what happened here. I guess people just don't care. I mean, we see all these Pokemon thefts at shows, at the Philly show. If they don't get you inside the show, sometimes, and the Philly show has presence on site, also walking around. Then they try to get you in the parking lot, or when you leave the show. So just be careful and always look over your shoulder.
Well, I'd like to get more comments from Bo, because Bo runs both a sports card show and a Pokemon show at the same location. I believe, I don't remember if it splits days or whether it's a different show, but he actually runs two very distinct shows, and he knows what's going on because he sees firsthand how things are being done at both types of shows. So, it's interesting. I'd like to hear from him a little more of what the difference with the Pokemon security is versus the sports card security.
Looking at some comments here. They're talking about the National should not be called the National because it's really not national, nationwide. Then call it the Midwestern. And here's a comment about the PSA 7. There was a PSA 7 that went missing. Just happened to know because I was at the table when they discovered it. I do not think the dealer went public about it. Do we know what type of maze PSA 7 that went missing for a short time or tried to be stolen?
I'm going to guess it's one of the earlier maze cards. If they're talking about a card like that being missing, I'm going to guess it's one of the better earlier Willie Mays cards. There it is, rookie 51 Bowman.
$51 Bowman. Jim said it. Brad knows. Then we had some dealers had their own security at their booths.
That.
Did we lose someone?
One thing getting in. Well, and I know there's some. Once you start charging admission, you can use anybody at any card show desire. And there is something to be said for that. You want to be visible.
I think we lost Rich. I wasn't sure if it was one of us.
Yeah. Oh, no.
We will invite Rich back. In the meantime, we're getting through the comments. Quite a few comments here. Pokemon dealers have some really good camera setups that double as security. Agreed with that. Pokemon dealers tend to be a little bit more tech savvy than some of the vintage dealers in the sports card space. Dealers shouldn't rely on just a camera. Yep. I hardly see any sports dealers with cameras. Agreed.
I don't know.
Dial-up isn't working well today. Brody, have you heard of dial-up modems?
I don't even think so.
We used to have a box that either went inside the computer or outside, and we used to attach it, and that's how we connected to the internet.
Oh.
It used to make really strange noises, which you could look up online. A lot of YouTube videos. It's pretty cool. It just made me laugh. I'm showing my age about modems. At my shows, 95% of the theft would have been prevented by locked cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to lock your cases. Once again, deals with high value items should have. Yep. Chat
Yep.
seems to agree.
Yep.
Sports card Illuminati got too rich. Brody never had AOL CD in the mail. Yeah, and talking about AOL CDs in the mail, I used to have DVD movies mailed to me in the mail, and AOL CDs was 5 years before, I believe 5 years before Netflix started. AOL Prodigy, yeah. In fact, I saw my first baseball card. It was a 1965 Steve Carlton using Prodigy.
Oh. Hey.
Rich, folks were asking about your dial-up modem.
Hey, hey, I loved AOL dial-up.
Hey, we still have a few of those AOL and Prodigy CDs hanging around. We can use them as coasters. You got mail? Here's a funny one. Brody never knew the pain of waiting 45 minutes to download a song from Napster. And also video games. We used to download video games using similar services. Bob Boozler, Rich defended Ken Goldin. And the Lord and
The
lightning to
Lord
his head.
struck me down for that. Yes.
Oh, this has been a great first time for me to do the technical
we have
background of Hobby Hotline.
We have great chats. They do not pull any punches in our chat.
Chat is on to something. Chat is on the morning by Laura. And we have Wolfenstein. That was a popular game. And Mr. Boozle says, Rich seems different. They cloned him. My kids and Greg says my kids crashed our computer so many times with Napster and LimeWire. Yeah, that's what they did. But I'll tell you one thing: buying baseball cards back then on eBay, it was doable because the picture sizes weren't too big, and the way eBay was set up using Netscape, it was pretty cool. So let's go on to the next topic before we have another technical difficulty. Probably on my end, but my kids are out of the house right now, so we don't have too much going on in terms of video gaming. So here's the AI enhancement of the man. We showed this earlier. Pretty nice article in Sports Collectors Daily about the lockup. It was a 61-year-old grandfather, as we talked about. Police charged. And someone in the chat said that the dealer was from the UK and probably just wanted to get the card back ASAP so they can sell it. And then good old Chicago 5 News. Man arrested after $12,000 sports card theft at Rosemont Convention.
By the way, do you notice how often the 12 shows up in the world? Long before Brody was born, do you remember in 1991 or so when this dealer at the store put a 12, meaning 1200, on a Nolan Ryan rookie card, and a kid saw it, and he was a sharpshooter, and he paid, and the person behind the counter who was watching the store didn't know that 12 meant 1200, and it became quite the most interesting lawsuit at the time because you can read about it, but it's a fascinating story, and everybody kind of now just doesn't want to talk about it anymore. But again, the number 12 shows up in the hobby that way, except that was $12 and $1,200.
Now, not on the agenda, but we wanted to talk about a big card show, Rich, that has, it started in 1989, 13 years or so,
88.
14 years. Oh, 88.
The East Coast National began in 88.
Oh, because it says 89 here. So this must have been the second one here, that the poster that I
It's the
have here.
second one. It began in 88.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. And here's the poster of the second one where they had Mantle, DiMaggio, and Seaver signing. And here we have, yeah. And here's a little bit of background from Google. So, Rich, can you tell us a little bit about the show and how it evolved and the first time which you attended?
Sure. The show, okay, Gloria Rothstein and her family, they started running shows at the White Plains Convention Center circa 1982. Could have been 81 or 82. And the shows were a big hit immediately. The first show they ever had actually was the same weekend as the famed Willow Grove show. And if you'd ever been to the old George Washington Motor Lodge in Willow Grove and you survived, my congratulations. That possibly is the worst hotel. Roaches don't even want to stay there. It was that bad of a hotel. And by 1988, they had come up with the idea of not just using the upstairs for the show, but also adding a couple hundred tables downstairs. And so you had what they called the East Coast National, where you had basically 600 tables at the show. It's basically the size of what the current Dallas Card Show is. And Dallas Card Show may be slightly bigger. And the show was, of course, like everything else in the late 80s, an instant hit. And it drew a ton of people. And as you saw by the second year, they really went big guns with the autograph guests. And they continued, as you see in 91, especially because that was the home of where Topps was. Topps did a 4-card reprint set. And I think it was a 52 Mantle, 54 Hank Aaron, and a couple other cards. And all those players, those cards were at the show. And it's, that's how important the East Coast National was in the early days of that show. Now, like a lot of other things, the East Coast National did have some downtimes later. And then Jimmy Ryan and his team, and Jimmy's now involved and his team is now involved in the National. They purchased the show from Dean Rothstein, and they really made a good effort to get the show back to where it was. And now they've sold that show, but the East Coast National is just about back to where it was, which is really a very important show because it's a great show to go to in the New York area. And the other thing is it's very accessible. And if you live like in the city or whatever and you don't want to drive, if you live in New York City, you can take the train and it's about a 5-minute walk to the show from the train station. So it's a really easy way to get there. And you can also drive there, and I've done both. And it's really a really fun show if you've never been there to walk around once if you live close to that area. And so I'm a big fan of what that show is. And plus, being from the New York area, there's a lot of good vintage at that show. And so when you like looking at old cards like I do, you really appreciate that show.
Was it 91 or 92 when the East Coast National had 4 cards, rookie cards? Oh,
91.
except for the
91. The back of the cards
91.
very clearly saying 91 East Coast National.
And the cards you're seeing on the screen right now, I remember the Aaron because I got out of the hobby in 1992, late 92. But I remember this Mickey Mantle card was making quite the news because it was a reprint and it said East Coast National, but Mantle was at the show signing these. And these go for a pretty dollar right now on the secondary market still. Were you at that show, Rich?
No, I don't remember. I think I was there, but I'm not positive. I went to most when I was at Beckett. I went to a lot of the East Coast Nationals, so I don't remember. I didn't go every year, but I went many years, so I don't remember what years I went and didn't go.
And then I believe this is the website for the page for the show today. Okay.
And
then
note
someone
to Bob
asked-
Boozle, Gloria Rothstein is responsible for one of the great lines in the hobby. One time she was talking about the first show she ever did, and she was used to things like coin shows and jewelry shows where, you know, the people come in, it's not super heavy to bring stuff in. And, you know, it was and the class of people were maybe slightly higher necessarily than card people. And she goes, at the end of the first day she ever did the card show, she talked about how the show ended up smelling like a men's gymnasium. And that's where the famed story about putting a bar of Dial soap behind every dealer's table came from. Because she wanted to make sure that every vendor at least did their best to be respectable for the show. And she was making a point, and that's where the story came from. Because let's face it, you were at both Brody and Tony were at the National. It was kind of crowded. It was so crowded that I don't care where you are, you're going to get certain things floating into the air, and it's not always necessarily the best aroma in the show.
Well, the car ladder booth, they were giving out deodorant, so that helped. And they had a ton of them.
And actually, not just them. The Dallas Card Show people give out deodorant too.
I didn't know. I haven't been to a Dallas Card Show yet. I'm barely able to
You
make
need
the
to
Philly
come
show.
down, Tony. You too, Brody. Both of you need to come down to Dallas.
I'll just I'm an Eagles fan, so I have to get over that hurdle of coming to Dallas.
That's a valid one.
Someone asked about the Philly show.
You get some really good barbecue.
Yeah, this is true. I've been in Dallas once for a job interview. Well, two of them actually, back to back. CompuCom. I'm not sure if they're still around. So the Philly show, folks asked about this. It's another vintage-centric show. I would say about 75% vintage, 25% modern, give or take, depending on which room you're in. The main room has a nice mixture, but you do have a lot of vintage there. But if you're looking for modern cards and also TCG, you'll find a ton. But there's 3 total rooms, and outside of the main room, you got the back room where the autographs used to be. Then to the left, you have another room, and that's where you'll find a nice combination of modern and vintage, in addition to unopened wax and also singles. And that goes from February 25th to the 27th. And I was just asked to remind folks, Ray from Philly and Coach Neil Cardboard, they're having a get-together after the Philly show. It's not associated with the Philly show. It's just a get-together of all folks who collect vintage and modern within the hobby, who post on social media, whether they comment or they produce content. And it's more, if you want more details about that, just look on YouTube or Instagram and search Ray for Philly, and you'll find out about that pretty cool meetup. Just a bunch of people hanging out, talking sports, and also showing some cards. Any closing remarks?
Well, Tony, we're coming up on the top of the hour. Thank you for doing such a great job and your first time behind the wheel.
Yeah. You did a good job. Do you got a little debut patch on your shirt that somebody can pull out of a pack out of Allen Ginter next year?
Yeah, this is my son's shirt that I borrowed. Sure, why not? All right.
Hey, it's my one collection is hobby signed cards. Could you imagine if we did a hobby set?
Let's get a chat. Good job. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Dukes. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate all the comments.
Yeah, chat was great today. Thank you guys. Lauren, you had a couple that made me laugh.
Bob,
Thanks, everyone.
the most expensive I've ever known one of my cards selling for is about $101, where I had a signed card to somebody named Ted who passed, and I got the card back, and actually I didn't get the card back, but they posted it on eBay. And another person named Ted bought the card for like $101, and I know there was an underbidder at least in the 90s. So that was kind of cool. So that's the most expensive card I know that I've had of my Topps cards.
Thanks, folks.
All right,
and
run the
stay
outro,
frosty.
Tony.
Yeah.
Run the outro and send us on our way.
Thank you, everyone, and stay frosty.